Hey everyone, Bren here. Welcome to this week's garden update where we're going to check out a herb that can help your tomato plants thrive. We'll also look at this noxious garden weed that sounds very festive, but I'm telling you, it doesn't make me feel merry at all. But first, let's go and check out these beautiful perennial flowers that bloom at this time of year. However, I would never dare use them in a bouquet to sell. You know, Christmas is almost here when you start seeing the agapanthus flower. I love growing these because they are so low maintenance, drought tolerant. They just look after themselves. But I have to say, there's a lot of people in my area who can't stand them. And I think that's because they can grow so prolifically. Like, I only put these in about 3 years ago, individual plants spaced around 50 centimeters apart, and they filled out fast. And when they do grow like this, they can be quite hard to dig up because the roots really anchor into the ground. Agapanthus can be quite invasive in many parts of Australia, so when growing these I try and be responsible by removing the flower heads once they have finished blooming, because I really don't want any seeds to set. Those seeds can be easily eaten by birds and spread around the area, which isn't really good for the native plants in our shire. While I would love to use these cut flowers in my bouquets, I don't think people would appreciate paying for these very common blooms. Now, they don't only come in this purpley blue colour, they also come in white, which is less common. I don't see as many of this colour. I've actually got a little patch growing down here that I may divide up once the renovations have finished, because I would love more of this colour scattered around the garden. You know, I'm looking at these flowers, but in the background I can see a bit of movement. Now, I haven't been down in this section in a while because this is near where we are renovating. And over here on the lemon tree I see, oh my goodness, mature stink bugs. I've only just noticed them. How bad is that? I've completely neglected this tree. I just haven't been down in this patch. Look at them, and I can smell them too. Oh, and they're mature too. They're much bigger than those orange ones when you first start to notice them, and they're absolutely covered. They're everywhere. I'm gonna have to try and remove them before they suck the life out of this tree, and I won't get any limes. Did I say lemons? I meant to say limes. I won't get any limes next year. Now, what they do is they suck the sap out of any new growth, causing the flowers and the fruit to fall off prematurely. I have to stop saying so cheerful when I say that, because it's just not a good thing to be happening at all, is it? Over here on this branch, I have to be really careful of these because they can spray you. That's what they look like, a bit more immature, and then they turn into this darker colour, and I think they're mating as well. These garden pests reproduce by the females laying clusters of eggs on this lime tree. Then after hatching, the nymphs go through several stages of reproduction before reaching adulthood, which is what you see here. The nymphs shed their exoskeleton several times, so they actually start off green, which I don't tend to notice because they seem to camouflage well into the foliage. But it's once they start changing to the orange colour, that's when, sorry, I got flies in my mouth, that's when I start to spot them around my trees. Here are the bunches of flowers which I dropped off to Tarmore Garden Centre on Friday for my small business Bren's Blooms. A couple of the arrangements I put into like a colour palette, if that's what you say. So there you saw the yellow and white, and here is the purple and white, and then the rest are just a mixed bunch. Now, last week's flowers did not sell out, and that is mostly because we went through a heat wave. It was extremely hot, and I don't think many people were going to the garden centre. And you know what? I don't always expect my flowers to sell out each week. I wish they did, but Sometimes that happens. Anyway, these are some dahlias I added in. Did I make the right decision? Because some of the petals are damaged from pests, but I thought I would still add them in because when you organic garden, not everything looks perfect, and hopefully my customers will appreciate that. Also want to mention I did have to buy a few additional flowers because I just did not have the bulk amount I needed to put them together for this week. I've got the chickens following me around, trying not to trip over them. I don't think they'll be getting any little treats off me today because I'm not doing any digging, although I do have a lot of beds to turn over, which I'll show you now in a second. I have made a start on it, putting in some of those new tomatoes, but I've got a lot more to go. Over here in the raised garden bed area, there's been some changes. I got a few garden beds filled out. This one has some tomato plants. These are the ones I showed you last week that I'm growing for sauces. I tried to control myself with the spacing and managed to only put 4 in here. Sometimes I try and squeeze 6 in, but I know 4 will give it a better airflow and hopefully healthier tomato plants. I'm even considering placing a few basil seedlings around the edge of this bed because basil is a great companion plant for tomatoes. And I do still have a few spare basil seedlings which are looking for a home, and they're certainly not very happy in here. I think the slugs and snails are getting to them. In my container garden, I've already got a pot of basil growing beside a tomato plant. Basil helps to deter pests which are attracted to tomatoes, such as aphids and hornworms. Look at that. Got some tomatoes coming on. This is so embarrassing. Look at the state of this plant. It is just desperately needs to be pruned. Oh, and also, little side note, marigolds are good for tomato plants too, so hopefully having a few of these flowers here and this delicious herb will mean that this plant will thrive. But first things first, I need to give it a bit of TLC, which I don't have time to do today, so maybe in next week's video I will get around to pruning it and I can share some tips with you. This one has 6 zinnia plants which I purchased as potted colour. Now, I've got a feeling that they're only dwarf zinnias. When I initially bought them, they had one large bloom, which got me excited. I thought, oh, these are the tall mix, but no. Then I noticed the buds on the rest of them are quite small. So this could possibly be a bit of waste of time because I may dig them up again. I really don't want to dedicate an entire raised bed to the dwarf zinnias. I want to have the nice tall stems so I can use them as cut flowers in my bouquets. So I'm almost certain that these ones will be coming out and I'll replace them with some of these. The growth of the zinnias has been so slow this year. These ones are probably the most far along. I do have lots more growing in the new cut flower bed, which I'll show you next week. Some of them are blooming, but I'm going to have to remove the blooms because they're on quite short stems. Now, I'm just hoping these have a bit of a growth spurt over in the next couple of weeks. I may even have to give them a liquid feed because I just miss having the zinnias in the bouquets. So yeah, there are buds here, like that one will open up, but I won't be able to use it as a cut flower because the stem will be so short. So I may even just pinch this off and encourage these 2 side shoots to grow, and they will be hopefully longer and I'll be able to use them in my arrangements. Come on, plants, I'm running out of patience. You need to hurry up. I need zinnias in my bouquets. I do have this other empty bed that I want to use for planting very soon, but unfortunately it's not going to be so straightforward to get it prepared. Usually I just top it up with compost and manures to replenish the soil, but this one needs a lot more attention than that, and that's because underneath here I know there is a noxious weed growing, tubers and rhizomes underneath, that if I don't dig them out it's just going to be an absolute disaster, and the foliage from that weed is going to take over whatever I put in here. I just dug this piece out to show you. Now, I don't know if it is a tuber or a rhizome or a bit of both, But anyway, it's something that's not welcome here in my garden. This belongs to a weed called Turkey rhubarb. I have some over here that I need to clear out too. This is what the foliage looks like, and it produces these little flowers that in turn produce nuts which are easily spread around, and then of course underneath the ground, as I said, the rhizomes just continue to grow. Now the thing about this is that I could just like pick this off here and you think I've cleared this little area, but oh no, because look what that is sticking out from the soil. That's the rhizome. To have any chance of trying to keep this invasive weed under control with the hopes of completely eliminating it from our garden, I need to do a bit of digging and get all of these up. Turkey rhubarb is a perennial climber and it's so fast growing. I can see why it's a noxious weed here in New South Wales. Because it grows so rapidly, it tends to like swamp out plants. So here what it's doing is it's climbing around this old azalea, which I'm probably going to pull it anyway. We gave it a bit of a prune. It is putting out a few shoots, but I don't know if it's worth saving. So the turkey rhubarb swamps it. It blocks out all the light. The foliage from the azalea or other plants that it climbs over can't photosynthesize, and then they just die off. And you can imagine this stuff getting out of control in our native bushland here in Australia. It can be so damaging to the native flora, and that is why it's so important that we need to try and get rid of it. Well, that is a wrap for this week, everyone. Thank you so much for watching until the end. And remember, if you want to support my channel, all you need to do is give this video a thumbs up, perhaps share it with a friend, and if you are not already, please consider subscribing. Until next Friday, I hope you have a fantastic 7 days ahead and happy gardening.